here's the irony of this. You know how that dynamic of like every right-wing accusation is a confession.
Mm-hmm. So you can go to 2020. This is probably around the time that I received a call from someone high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about this.
Oh, wait, was it about this or about the union busting?
Oh, that happened twice. So it was about this, that TYT was selling its email list seemingly covertly to the Biden campaign in 2020. So this guy,
the exact thing that they accused us of doing.
Yeah.
That's the point that I find.
Isn't that interesting?
Listen, I don't like,
The vanguard will be there.
We may have to twist the knife a little bit, Zach, because as I put in the headline, Sam and Emma may have dealt the fatal blow to the Young Turks, following up on the total, disastrous attempt to publicly smear and humiliate longtime TYT contributor Francesca Fiorentini. Sam and Emma were like, "Fuck this! We're not holding back anymore. This is absolutely unacceptable." And just one after another, like a freaking machine gun, rattling off different crazy details, exposing both Cenk, Anna, and the Young Turks company time and time again over the course of a 46-minute long expose that's gone absolutely viral. So, wow. I don't know what Cenk and Anna thought they were doing, opening this can of worms, pissing off all these people and the friends of people that they're pissing off, especially folks like Sam and Emma with the big platform and a lot of relevance, increased relevance, specifically in the Trump 2.0 era. While Cenk has been hanging out with Dr. Phil and, trying to get an invite to Mar-a-Lago, Sam Seder has actually been battling conservatives, 300 style, right? He's like fucking King Leonidas. And remember he went to the Jubilee room and there's like hordes and hordes of angry MAGA hogs.
Shows up like Gerard Butler.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Sam's been up to. And people fuck with it. People appreciate that energy. They approve of that vibe right now. And again, it's kind of the opposite of what Cenk and Anna have been up to, which is just engaging in personal petty garbage and trying and mostly failing to execute a right-wing pivot for money. So yeah, I thought this was interesting. Like I said, a lot of stuff here. I don't know how much of the video we'll actually get through, Zach, but did you get a chance to take a look at any of this? Do you have any thoughts on the, continued downfall of the Young Turks, even since the Francesca firing?
Yeah, so that's what's crazy. Not only did Francesca's profile absolutely explode, I think she's up to 180,000 subscribers on her channel and only growing, which is tremendous for her. She does great work. She has excellent output, and I'm really excited that this has backfired so tremendously for the Young Turks and really been a catalyst for Francesca to get out there on her own. And I want to talk about that a little bit because I thought you did a great job setting up the Sam Seder thing, which we're going to get into. But Francesca put her fucking chips in the middle, man. She said, "This is what I believe. This is what I have to say. And fuck you if you're going to fire me for it, because I'm going to bet on myself. I have courage. I have principles. I'm drawing a line in the sand. You cross it, fine. I'm out of here. I believe in myself," right? And, I don't want to be beating a dead horse. Let's just say other contributors at TYT chose not to believe in themselves. Other contributors at TYT said, "Oh, I'll just ignore Cenk's right-wing pivot. I'll just stay in my own lane. Oh, Anna and Cenk, you would never have heard of me if it wasn't for them giving me an opportunity over 15 years ago," or whatever it is. "So I'm just going to continue to kiss their ass and pretend that they're not being actively harmful to both people that I care about and the broader progressive movement." And Francesca was rewarded, and the people who decided to stay around are going to be punished for it. They are going to go down with the Titanic, and you know what happened to the people that went down with the Titanic? They perished in the cold fucking water.
Yeah, geez, that's pretty dark. But I think what you're saying is already being borne out, Zach, because Francesca's channel, like I said, this firing totally backfired. And she said this on our show. She was like, if they had just kind of quietly fired me without making a big deal about it, no one would have really cared, and I wouldn't have gotten much of a boost out of that. But as a result, she went from 150,000 subs to 182. That was what it was at, Zach, right? 150,000 before she got fired.
Yeah, it was like 4 days. It was crazy. I remember when she came on our show and we were chatting with her, and I was like, bro, overnight, 17,000 new subscribers. So it's doubled since then, and it's going to continue to grow. The clip that she put out talking about why she was no longer with TYT has gotten over 400,000 views, guys. That's insane. Think about that. 400,000 eyeballs listening to this woman talk about why her progressive values prohibit her from endorsing the Young Turks, wanting to contribute to the Young Turks, and biting her tongue about criticism of the Young Turks network, a place where she put in her heart and soul for 9 fucking years. You know what I mean? Almost a decade, guys. That's a long time. I've never worked anywhere for that long.
Yeah, 100%. It's genuinely crazy. I still can't believe they thought it would like be a good look to go about firing her in that public way, you know, without her being there to defend herself. But take a look, Zach. It seems like a lot of people agreed with us, because on the day that went down, TYT lost another 10,000 subs. So the mass exodus continues. TYT really has yet to make up any of the subs that they have lost, not only since firing Francesca, but basically for the last 6 months or so. They've been hemorrhaging subs, or at least not gaining any back. I think they've at least lost like 40, 50, 60,000, something in that ballpark. And like I said, it's a steady atrophy at this point. They're not regaining any momentum. They haven't found some new pool of support from the right wing like they expected they would. Nope, it seemingly has all dried up. They've hit the ceiling, even with Cenk going on Piers Morgan and going on all these other stupid podcasts, and Anna Kasparian going on right-wing podcasts that theoretically have a much bigger following than a lot of the left-wing shows like the Bitchuation Room. But of course, it's not working at all. TYT continues to go downhill. And Zach, I watched last night, or on Friday, I mean, it was a pathetic, miserable vibe. Miserable vibe. I don't think the stream cracked 3K live viewers. I think at their peak, it was at 3,000 live viewers. Anna Kasparian couldn't bother to show up. Not only was she not at the Poly Market studio, she wasn't even on the stream at all. So it was just Cenk and a few of his like teleprompter readers. He doesn't even address them by name. You know, they might as well be AI generated hosts. They don't even contribute anything. They have no ideology. They don't push back. They don't argue. It's not fun. Cenk looked miserable. And like I said, Anna can't even be bothered to show up, even after making Cenk fire Francesca publicly by himself, right, in such a humiliating fashion. So, no one's watching. The ship's going down. You can tell that Cenk and Anna's heart isn't in this anymore. And here comes Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland again to kind of deal potentially a bit of a final blow. This is wild. Oh
yeah, we talked about how Cenk was a bad businessman with Francesca. We talked about how he was a bad boss. I read through the from 2017 on, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Joe Sandberg. They didn't do one of their primary investors, guys. Listen, think about this. One of their primary investors, a guy that they advertise on their website, gets arrested for fraud, and they don't release any statement about it. He defrauded his investors, okay? Those people who are connected to TYT via those investments, right? No comment. Oh, he's just an anti-homeless activist. Joseph Sandberg literally is potentially facing like time behind bars. And you know how much corruption you have to be involved with to go to jail for being a part. Joe Sandberg, co-founder of Aspiration Partners, arrested for conspiring to defraud an investment fund of at least $145 million. These are the guys that Cenk reached out to for cash when TYT was doing well. Who is he reaching out to now that they're struggling? Poly Market Studios, as Gavin pointed out the other day, they're no longer calling it Poly Market Studios, probably because the sponsorship wasn't renewed, because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
It was probably for the election, honestly.
Yeah.
Because they offered that to Hassan too. We talked about it, but I think, I think the Poly Market money's probably dried up too.
And what Cenk decided to do, last thing I'll say before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the Sam takedown, what Cenk decided to do as like a final maneuver was also rooted in a horrible, horrible business strategy. See, the way that a lot of people finance podcasts and the way that they generate ad revenue and the way that you seek sponsorships is very much modeled off of the old radio system, right? Radio, how you sell ads, because a lot of the people that are getting involved in selling audio ads, they used to sell their audio ads on radio. And radio breaks up your listener base into 3 basic categories, right? People who are only listening to you because they accidentally found you on the radio, right? People who just happen to be listening to you, but then they get stuck. People who know who you are, but don't listen to all of your content. And then last but not least, people who know your content and they look forward to the work that you put out, and then they try and seek you out and consume the content that you create, right? The people who would be your subscribers on YouTube, right? Your hardcores. What Cenk went and did was he said, I'm going to set fire to all of my hardcores. I'm going to set fire to maybe 75% of the people who marginally like me when they come across me. And I'm going to bet the entire house on people who just come across news on the internet, right? At a time when it has never been more difficult to succeed at people just finding you to cover the news on the internet, right? So he had this massive handicap. He'd already been bleeding subscribers, and now he's trying to go for more generic audience base. All of that is going to be a recipe for disaster, basically. It's going to be a recipe for killing your channel. He tried to mainstream in a sense and basically just, pulled out top of the house of cards.
100%. I mean, I think that's kind of been the story of TYT's downfall ever since taking that Katzenberg cash. That's why he took it. In an pathetic attempt to mainstream the network, make it appeal to more normie folks, get it on actual TV, essentially thinking that YouTube TV was going to blow up. It kind of did. He wasn't wrong about that, but
wasn't sustained.
Yeah, not in the way that he was expecting. So, I think you're totally right about that. And Zach, I just checked Cenk's Twitter feed. He's still digging deeper. He's doubling down. He still thinks that with enough of these dumbass screeds, he's going to change people's mind, and everyone's going to wake up and realize, actually, Cenk's right about this. So I'm so proud to be hated by the radical left. So he's dropped the max left. That lasted for about a week. Remember, he was trying to be respectful, so he called us the max left. No, it's back to radical left. It's back to sounding like Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity, like some boomer ass, Fox News pilled loser, but not based on policy. Oh, it's not about the policy. So you're admitting that it's not about policy. That's hilarious. But based on attitude. There are plenty of our viewers and hosts who are way to the left of me on the issues. I actually love that exchange of ideas.
No, you don't.
It's the radical mindset that's so toxic. It's and it's true for radicals on either end of the spectrum. Here are their rules. So he's doing some both sides bullshit. You must hate the other side. You must have a completely closed. Why does he always have to present everything in a list of fucking rules? Like he's your fucking teacher in third grade. Like, number 1, do this. Number 2, have a beer. Number 3, hash it out or whatever. Anyway, number 3, you must be pure racially or ideologically. What the fuck? We're racist against people ideologically in the way that conservatives are racially, Zach. That's how we're just as bad. Us on the left, us progressive. It's basically the same thing. It's basically bigotry, in the same way.
That's a crazy thing to say, right? The right wants you to be racially pure, right? They want a homogenized society of a master race. The left over here, they oppose that with every fiber of their being, and it's pretty much the same, They really fucking hate those Nazis, man. They really hate those people that want to kill their friends because of the color of their skin or their sexual orientation. They can't stand those motherfuckers. So that pretty much it's just the hate circle, like, you fucking moron.
Yeah, that's so absolutely idiotic, adding literally nothing valuable as far as his analysis, basically just doing some stupid horseshoe theory saying that, oh, yeah, it's the extreme left and the extreme right that's the problem. If everyone just meets in the center, then society would be great. Yeah, I've never heard that before, Cenk. What an enlightened, fucking unique political philosophy that is. But yeah, just doubling down. I don't know who he really thinks the audience for this is. It's not like when he tweets this out, it gets a ton of attention. Like, this got 1,000 likes, which isn't all that much for a Cenk tweet. Admittedly, it's only about 2 hours old, but still, this isn't going to blow up. It's not going to go viral. It's not really going to do much other than dig the hole deeper, right? He keeps doubling down, thinking that this is some brilliant thing that's going to make everyone catch up to him and be on his page all of a sudden. But it's just not the case. It's just not the case. And especially in tweet form. I mean, at least when Cenk is talking on air, he has some charisma. He's, has some, he's kind of funny. He has a personality. When you just read it on Twitter, it's even less inspiring. It's even less impressive. It's just pathetic.
Yeah, it's kind of like comedians where if you read their jokes, you wouldn't get it because it's in the inflection. Cenk, as you put it, at least he does have some passion on the microphone. He gets worked up. He has some anger, and he used to channel that anger on behalf of the working class people in his audience. He used to channel that anger against the 1% that was screwing us, and now he channels that anger against trans people, the unhoused, and anybody who disagrees with him on Twitter.
Yep, 100%. Also, it is clearly based on policy. He's trying to weasel out of this and say like, oh, it's just about attitudes, which if anything is more pathetic overall, right? Like I'd actually rather the disagreement be substantive. I'd rather it be a policy one than, oh, my feelings got hurt because I didn't like the mean attitude of left-wingers online. That's as pathetic as it gets. At least if it's a policy disagreement, it's actually a substantive disagreement. But I mean, Cenk clearly does have major, serious disagreements with the quote-unquote radical left. He's constantly fucking harping about a litany of mostly stupid cultural issues, culture war issues, acting like, that's the most important thing in the world, when in reality he talks more about it at this point than any of us on the progressive left actually do. Like, we only talk about fucking trans people in sports if we're responding to someone like Cenk. We don't just start our show by like, hey, bro, did you hear about this trans person in sports? Isn't this awesome? Like, that's not what we do. Most people don't, formulate their show that way. It's ridiculous.
No, and last point on trans people in sports, just because I was thinking about this over the weekend, right? I was talking about how doing this 100,000 subscriber push has been like running a marathon. And then I started to think about it for a second, bro. And let me run this by you really quickly, because I'm pretty sure, based off of the research that I've done, that the oldest sport is track and field, and one of the oldest fucking regulated big spectacle sports was actually the marathon. It was huge, and it's been huge for like thousands of years, right? It goes back to ancient Greece, the word marathon, but even then people have been running long distance for sport for a long freaking time, right? So I would say if you were going to pick one sport to rule them all, anybody could do it, right? Because everybody has legs and feet, and anybody can run. Even if you don't have legs, you could still run if you have like prosthetic legs, right? It's a universal sport everyone can participate in. Basically the baseline test of fitness and sport, okay? I think we can all agree on that, at least for the premise of this argument. Now, Gavin, did you know that like 95 of the top 100 marathons that you can compete in the world they all have men and women both competing side by side in them, every single one?
I mean, it makes sense.
If you go to the Chicago Marathon, you go to the Boston Marathon, you go to the New York City Marathon, you go to the Honolulu Marathon, you go to the Moab 500, okay? Guess what? Men and women competing in the race, right? Yet somehow these guys get all fucking worked up when in swimming we have somebody that's included, or we have somebody in, bicycle riding that's included. I'm like, how's that any fucking different than running, which we've been doing for longer than any of these other sports, and nobody had a problem with it that there was a gender mix in the, racetrack?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Either way, Cenk, doubling down, just being dumb as fuck here, saying nothing original or insightful whatsoever. Yeah, I don't really know what he thinks. I don't really know what his plan is. I don't really know what him and Anna's plan is. It seems like they want to just do a boring news show where it's like, we're not ideological, we're not activists, we're just giving you the news. But then Cenk does want to do activism also. Like, he's about to launch this stupid new rebrand of a Justice Democrats kind of model or pack. And he's going to run all these like has-been loser candidates. Like, what's that guy's name from West Virginia that ran? God, I forget his name. But, he's
Richard Ojeda?
Yeah, Richard Ojeda. Like, he's going to bring out all these I'm sorry, but people that don't have
like
a track record of winning and relaunch Justice Democrats, but it's going to be like populist instead of progressive this time, right? But then Anna's like, we're not political, we're apolitical, and I'm not an activist, I'm a commentator, so I don't have a political perspective or an ideology, I'm just here to give the news. Until Cenk says that, oh, Kamala Harris might run for governor of California, and then she starts shrieking in the most hysterical way possible, clearly inserting her actual politics and ideology into the news. So it's like, what is the plan? You're not really doing anything.
All the while calling yourself the home of progressives, by the way, which I think is very important.
Well, it's funny, Zach, because I don't know the last time I did hear Cenk say that. To be honest, the main the only real the only place where that remains is the website, from what I can tell, is the TYT shop, where they sell shirts that still have progressivism and feminism and kind of like 2016 era left-wing iconography plastered all over it. But yeah, on the main show, it's just like, I don't hear home of progressives much. It doesn't really seem like they're on a mission. It doesn't really seem like they have a like they're it's just like, okay, we're in favor of good things and against bad things. Like we're in favor of paid family. Okay, yeah, so's everyone. It's not that exciting. So I don't know what the plan is, but either way, we've been beating around the bush for 34 goddamn minutes. Zach, do you want to take a look at this majority report segment where they really get to take the knives out and twist that son of a bitch?
Absolutely. Let's get into it. I'm really excited. Shout out to Emma and Sam for doing this dunk fest. I know they don't love to get into the muck and the mire. Usually they're charitable enough to let us, have all the fun ourselves over here. A couple of swamp monsters, me and Gavin, some filthy boys. But anyway, shout out to them for, joining us in the gutter.
Yeah, shout out to them.
This is a masterful takedown, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely glorious. And by the way, the video from 3 days ago where Cenk explains why he's removing a contributor from the TYT network, that's on the Young Turks channel. 311 views. That's the most views they've got.
311,000.
Sorry, 311,000. Yes, that would be really embarrassing. No, 311,000 views, which is a lot. That's a big video. But it's also their only video in the last week or so that's even really done particularly well at all. And even that 311,000 views. Zach, let's take a look how many this guy has. Like I said, it's gone a wee bit viral with 446,000 views, clobbering the Young Turks, even though this was released a day ago. This was released 3 days ago. And like I said, the Young Turks isn't going to be able to put out anything more eye-catching and scandalous than that. Cenk firing a long-time contributor. I mean, he'd have to fire Anna Kasparian. That's the only way they could top that. And obviously that's not going to happen. So, it's so effortless for Sam and Emma at this point. They can just put out a completely impromptu 46-minute-long dunk fest and just completely destroy the TYT numbers and relevance.
Oh, yeah. Not only that, but Francesca herself, why I'm okay with being banned from TYT, 436,000 views in 2 days. You know what I mean? Nobody cares about Cenk. A lot of the people, if you go to that comment section, are saying, shame on you for firing Francesca. I'm unsubbing. It's not a ton of fawning praise of Cenk. Meanwhile, if you go to if you go to Francesca's video, it's a bunch of people celebrating her. And if you go to the Majority Report video, it's a bunch of people talking shit on TYT. So anyway, they're on their way out. That's without a doubt.
Yeah, it's they're not winning this war by literally any metric. That's what I would say. By not subscribers, not video view count, even though they're the channel with the most subscribers out of any of us, right? They have like 3 times as many subs, 4 or 5 times as many subs, even as Sam Seder in the Majority Report.
I don't know what went on at TYT, over the 10 years that
Francesca was a contractor. No benefits,
a contractor there. I do know, only because I have firsthand experience about it, that Cenk was completely lying in his characterization of what went on with Hina. I mean, I sort of couldn't quite make out exactly what he was saying. But I will be absolutely clear about this. Cenk and I, in October of 2016, went and had a drink at the Tord conference that I would go to. And in Las Vegas, he invited me for a drink because he wanted to ask me, and this is specifically said, what can I do? And I should say at that time, the TYT liked to pretend like it was some type of network, that it was not a network. We basically we were basically TYT's client. And for, I think it was 20% of our YouTube revenue, they would do all the optimization.
Mm-hmm.
Way too small of an operation to do it. And so they would do it. And occasionally they'd put our stuff on their Facebook page or something. And Cenk came to me and he said, but he wasn't my employee. He wasn't employer or employee or any of it. And Cenk came to me and said, what can I do to tamp down this feud with Jimmy Dore? And I was like, fire him, because his politics suck. And I think Cenk accused me of wanting to call him names. I had a problem with Jimmy Dore on his TYT show saying it didn't matter if Peter Thiel was on the Supreme Court. And then subsequently, when I invited him on to discuss it I was very measured about it until he started acting like a jackass. I said, hey, dude, we could end up with Donald Trump appointing 3 Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's response was, "Oh, we could also have the moon fall into Lake Michigan."
You're trying to manipulate me with fear.
Exactly.
Right. And I think Roe v. Wade was also the subject, and that was basically him saying that the moon it's more likely that the moon falls into Lake Michigan than Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and look what happened.
That was back in the day when he acknowledged 3 Supreme Court justices as a bad thing.
Yes. I mean, sort of vaguely. And that was it. Cenk wasn't reprimanding me, because if Cenk had tried to reprimand me, I would have told him to eat my arse.
Right.
If you guys go back and listen to that phone call debate between Jimmy and Sam Seder, everything kind of falls into place for Jimmy's trajectory. You realize a couple of things. One, he has no empathy for anyone else. He is unconcerned with anyone suffering besides his own. So if he doesn't think something is going to directly impact him, doesn't cross his radar at all, does not come into a factor for his calculations. And also, he's just not very bright. He's not a very sophisticated guy. He's not a very critical thinker. He doesn't do any homework on his own. He only knows tidbits and talking points that have been fed to him from someone else. So when you catch him with his pants down or you really make him argue, he just flees. And in the case of Sam Seder, he never came back.
No, there was no reprimanding. I don't remember when we left TYT, but it was basically when we decided, like, I don't need them to optimize anymore. It wasn't because he fired me, because I was calling Jimmy Dore
I didn't even catch that.
Garbage or whatever it was. They were upset when we left, because we were just paying them money for stuff that we didn't need to really do. And so that was it. And, listen, Cenk is upset because he got 20 million from, Katzenberg, and he had gotten a couple of million before then from Buddy Roemer.
And who knows how much Polymarket paid.
Well,
yeah.
But I'm saying he got all this money invested,
right,
and they blew it. They blew all the money. They didn't know what they were doing. Cenk at the time was desperate to be seen. He kept saying, like, he wanted to be on in airports. Then I'm like, dude, you got the biggest YouTube channel. That's going to be the future. And so he was very aspirational about his business. That's fine. I'm very much.
And by the way, this has always kind of been my analysis as well, right? And that's so funny that Cenk would say that. I want to be seen in airports. I want TYT to be on in airports. For one, why? Why the fuck would you want that, bro? Do you not want people to actually give a shit about the things you're saying? Because guess what? When you're at the airport, whenever you're somewhere like that and there's a TV playing, no one's fucking paying attention to that shit unless they're so miserable and bored. Maybe their phone is charging and they have nothing else to look at, and they're forced to watch the fucking cable news, the CNN, whatever's playing on the TV at a place like that, or in a bank or a retirement home lobby or some crazy shit. Like, you really rather be there than have a dedicated and loyal audience of people that actually really give a fuck, which is what Cenk had. That's wild, Zach. And it's just crazy that at the time, I looked up to the Young Turks. I wanted to work at the Young Turks back then. And the whole time, Cenk was dissatisfied with what he had built and with what so many viewers in his loyal audience had given him. He was like, no, this isn't enough. These are weirdos. These are fringe people. I want to be mainstream. I want to be seen in the fucking airport by a bunch of losers and rich people and boomers, and who cares? Because it doesn't even matter what I'm saying. It's just the prestige of being on TV, I suppose. But I find that to be just such a shocking admission, because I personally would much rather do this show for a handful of devoted audience, members or listeners or whatever, people that actually give a shit about us, what we're saying, the mission we're on here. I would much rather take that in a million years over some better paying gig at some corporate glossy news company that no one actually cares about.
Yeah, I think what Cenk was attempting to thread the needle for, what we talked about at the beginning of this stream, right? How there are 3 kinds of listeners to your show broadly, right? And he was taking a big swing at getting rid of the hardcores that he had on YouTube because he didn't think that was enough. It was not satisfying to him because he saw a glass ceiling on the advertising dollars, right? How many people walk past your show on the airport? A lot of people walk past it. A lot of times that's what a company like McDonald's is looking for. That's what a company like Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, whomever, Apple, these massive, massive companies, they just want to have a billboard that's picking up eyeballs, right? So they don't care how much you like Cenk. They don't care if you know who Cenk is. They only care if your eyeballs are on that screen, right? And what Cenk was trying to do was be able to argue, I have 6 million subscribers. I'm in, X many airports. I'm in hotel lobbies. I'm in, waiting rooms here and Y and Z. And then he starts to make more money. Right. And then also we know that Cenk is a huge narcissist. So he sees his face on all of that. He sees his face on billboards. He imagines himself as like a Stephen A. Smith of left-wing podcasting. He imagines himself as like this new wage Walter Cronkite. He wants to be as popular and as well-known as Tucker Carlson or, Rachel Maddow. And I think that there was still a break between all of that, because he was not only trying to be Tucker Carlson and Rachel Maddow, he was also trying to be Rupert Murdoch. He was also still trying to be, the guy that owned everything and then could therefore put his face on the front of it and make more money. It was so hubristic. It was so selfish that to him, it was like he had the blinders on.
Yeah, 100%. They totally diluted the actual, spirit of the product in the process of chasing that ambitious dream. And that's always been my analysis, guys. Even before TYT started to go right wing and before they started to pathetically pander to the Dr. Phils and Charlie Kirks of the world and their brain dead audiences, right? One of the first complaints I really had about TYT was just after that corporate money got taken, the spirit of the show evaporated. All the stuff that made it fun. They stopped like cursing on air. I used to love that when I started watching TYT. They would say the F word. They would, curse not only at whatever the story was they were talking about, but at each other sometimes. It would actually get spicy, sometimes a little bit hostile, but it still felt like a family, right? And it just felt more fun too. They had this like soundboard. They would always play these funny, sound effects. It felt like a great time, and all of that started to quickly disappear as soon as the investment money came in, which honestly was my first big criticism of the network. I was willing to forgive some of the differences I had. I never agreed with Cenk on everything. I never obviously agreed with Anna on anything or on everything or anyone really. Who do you agree with on literally everything? But that was what really began to turn me against TYT. And it's nice to see Sam acknowledging that, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Cenk was unsatisfied with his relevance, even though they had such a great thing going, such an awesome audience. It wasn't enough. He wanted to be in airports.
And people are looking for clarification. I don't think they were throwing around the F slur. Gavin meant fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Although apparently, according to some people in chat, they would let the N-word fly occasionally if it came up in context.
Yeah, I was about to say there are some videos floating around out there from a while back. But yeah, let's keep watching this.
Just like 1,000 flowers bloom.
Absolutely.
But the idea that he's talking about, like somehow he doesn't like to get into name calling. He a month and a half ago was calling me all sorts of names. Now,
low rank grifter.
Frankly, I don't care.
Right.
Apparently, he's very sensitive to being called. But we're going to do something here on the program right now.
Uh-huh.
I would like everyone in this office, you can do it off mic, to call me a bitch, and let's see what happens.
Wait, can I just wait? Are you going to remove me from the show?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
You're a bitch.
Oh, God. Oh, God. This is so contrary to the community we're trying to build here. Matt?
I'm supposed to insult you?
Yeah.
You stutter a lot.
No, you're supposed to call him.
Oh, that one cuts a little close to the bone, buddy.
Use a bad word.
Listen,
Asshole.
Listen,
He was supposed to call him a bitch, and he just said something else that was deeply hurtful, I'm sure, to Sam. I was taking the opportunity to really get the knife in. Maybe there's something going on behind the scenes.
I actually take it the other way. There's such a fraternal love, kind of like an uncle and nephew situation going on between Matt Leck and Sam Seder, that he was like, oh, I'll tell you something funny. I'll take a shot at it. And then the audience will speculate whether I'm actually going to get fired. It'd be like if I was like, Gavin, say something mean to me. And he would be like, I can only ever understand like every sixth thing you say because you fucking talk over yourself like a motherfucker and you interrupt me constantly. I'd be like, damn, he's really throwing shade today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this was even addressed by the comments. Matt has a lot he wants to get off his chest, LOL. So that is pretty funny. I'm sure that everything's fine between Matt and Sam, but that is kind of funny. Even Sam's face says it all. He's like, "Whoa, bro!" Whoa.
It's like, bro, on air? This is why you're supposed to call me ugly.
He's like, "Now you are fired." I'm going full Cenk.
Take it easy.
I see up in here.
The point is that that Cenk is looking for everyone to blame but himself for his current predicament over there. And we held off for a long time and took a lot of criticism for it, for not critiquing what was going on over there. Because largely, I'm not that interested in policing people. But some of the stuff they started to do was really, really bad. And so that's what we started addressing it, and they're lighting themselves on fire over there, and that's all well and good. But they should do it in a way where they're not telling lies that are easily debunked. Now, just because there seems to be a desire to sort of like have all the things out, I just want to tell one other story, because Cenk and I didn't have a tremendous amount of interaction over the years. I've known him since he was on Air America. And I filled in a couple of times, I think, on TYT, 15 years ago or something like that. The one thing that I really struck me in the one sort of like behind the scenes interaction I had with Cenk was at one point, and I had looked it up when, I don't know when exactly this happened. It was during, I think, the first Trump administration. I could look it up again in the emails. I was invited to a meeting with some of the Google, or I think it was Google, government liaison people.
Scary.
And it was me, Cenk, and two of these people. And they were asking us about potential hearings on antitrust that Google might face. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, with all due respect, I like the fact that, we do make money on YouTube. I appreciate you people. I do think that Google should be broken up into many pieces. And they were like, okay. And I was like, and there's a growing antitrust movement. And I really do hope they're successful in pulling you guys apart. I don't want you guys to lose your jobs. And I don't think you will, or whatever, but I just want you to know that. Cenk was not only so dismissive about it, I do specifically remember, he goes, well, I've read Matt Stoller. I will testify on Google's behalf in front of Congress. Now, it was both hilarious to me that Cenk thought that would be valuable to them.
All delusional.
Yeah, the delusional part, I've always sort of understood. It always, was part of Cenk's.
That says so much about Cenk's kind of psychology, right? When he's in the room with these people, of course, he wants their approval so bad, so bad. Obviously, they wouldn't actually need him to, defend them or whatever, but he just wants their approval. He wants them to feel like, oh, this guy's, on our side. But then, of course, when he's on air, he wouldn't say that. He would probably rail against Google and be like, yeah, of course we should break them up. At least at that time period, he would have fucking told a straight lie to his audience and pretend to be a populist, crusader. And now we see the exact same thing happen with Trump, right? After fucking years of screaming about Donald Trump and, warning his audience about Donald Trump. Now that Donald Trump's actually in office again, he's trying to get his fucking ass to Mar-a-Lago. He wants approval. He wants to sit at the cool kids table.
Oh, 100%. And it's exactly like how he starts a fucking super PAC to get money out of politics. And then he himself runs for president. He's like, I'm not going to do unilateral disarmament. And it's like, bro, you literally cheerled Bernie Sanders for 6 fucking years. And the whole movement was with grassroots small dollars. And you said, this is the way. We're starting a rebellion PAC. We're starting a wolf PAC. We're starting Justice Democrats. We're starting all of this kind of stuff as a way to get money out of politics. And as soon as it serves you, he only cares about himself, guys. You know what? That's the thing. The reason Cenk and Jimmy got along for so long is because they're really the same guy. Cenk, through all of his faults, he's not a drunken fucking fool. So he was able to get a little further in life than Jimmy. But at the end of the road, they're the same guy. They only care about consumption. They only care about themselves. They only care about positioning. And you just have to put yourself in the situation. You're Sam Seder. You're at an executive meeting with the Google bros and the people who run YouTube. So technically, you do make them money. So you're like, okay, I'm here. Whatever. What do you guys have to say to me? Sam has the fucking righteous energy with him. And he's like, I think you guys should be broken up. I don't really want to do any advertising for you. I appreciate that you guys bought YouTube. Oh, by that, I mean, I understand you guys own it and it's the platform I use. So, I hope that stays in business, but I'm not going to do any flattery for you. And for posterity, I've also read Goliath. I don't believe Cenk has if he drew the conclusion that Google does not need to be broken up. And then he just goes to suck cock for whoever's the richest guy in the room. And that's been his attitude his whole life. He literally was like Jeffrey Katzenberg. $900 million. I'm going to get me a piece of that. Dude raised multiple funding rounds from venture capital while he was calling himself progressive independent media. Think about that, guys. He's always been a liar. He's been a charlatan. Gavin and I won't even take fucking phone calls with advertisers, okay? You want to know what I'd have to say to a Google executive if they called me up? We would immediately start rolling, put that shit on speaker, and have one of the biggest clips we've ever done before.
I'd be like, hey, why do we only get like 50% of our actual revenue?
40%, dude.
40%, whatever it is. It's crazy. That would be my first question. But yeah, let's keep watching because Sam is not holding back. He's spilling the tea. He's coming with the receipts. And yeah, this is going to get even better, guys.
Charm.
Yeah.
But I was like, this guy, like, where are this guy's principles? I mean, I remember like the first argument we had on air was about Bill Clinton back in the, 2008 or 7, because he thought that Bill Clinton was one of the good Democrats, because when Bill Clinton was in office, he was literally a Federalist Society member, a Republican and lawyer. Now, I love converts, and sometimes they have the zeal of converts, but over time, if you are untethered to some type of like fundamental ideology, what happens is when you hire people, for instance, you don't even know what to look for because you don't have that yourself. And so you can hire people who walk in and go like, oh, these are the principles I believe in. But if they can't articulate them in a way that hits your understanding of why you have these beliefs.
And by the way, I do think Cenk has an ideology, and that's capitalism. I think it's very clear, and I think it's why his company has at this point now spun out of control, because that's what capitalism inevitably does, even to the good products that come about from its existence, right? TYT was an example of, capitalism working. Here's a good product that's actually making money that people want to watch, but like pretty much every company or corporation, they tried to grow and grow and grow and get more and get bigger and more ambitious at the expense of the product, because that's kind of the point of capitalism. You can't stagnate. You have to keep growing, even if it's at the expense of the product itself. Ultimately, that's what kills most companies. They overexpand. They get into stuff that they shouldn't have.
Facebook.
Exactly. Instead of just, focusing on what was actually working when that was the appeal in the first place. The further you stray away from that, the worse the product gets, the less money you make, even though it's all in this expansionist, quest, right? So yeah, it's capitalism. It's a tale as old as time. And it's clearly something that Cenk believes. It's one of the only truly consistent elements of his philosophy, no matter what no matter whether he's been on the right, on the left, as a so-called progressive, he's always identified as a capitalist. I remember at one point he hilariously even coined the term like progressive capitalist or democratic capitalist or something like that, to try to, have it like to be an alternative to the democratic socialist label that was gaining steam at the same time. DSA rising, Bernie Sanders. Even though he was on board with that, he was like, you know what, maybe we should call it democratic capitalist instead. But I think that's worth pointing out.
Yeah, that's the same guy who thought defund the police was a bad strategy. So, I don't think we need to take his advice on sloganeering, but yeah.
They could turn out to be a Jimmy Dore,
Right.
or a Dave Rubin,
Right.
or an Anna Kasparian, or a Michael Tracy,
Brianna Wu.
or a Brianna Wu,
Who's still on the payroll, I guess,
Or-
but not Francesca.
Ben Gleed.
Yeah,
or
Ben Gleed.
I mean, all these things can happen.
Yeah. Right. Or honestly, I think you can also see it reflected in the way you treat your employees, right? Like with the efforts to bust the union.
Oh my God, the union busting was so gross.
It was. And even at the time, I received a call from somebody high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about it. I was young. I kind of have regrets about that I should have spoken up a little bit more publicly, but I was also not making too much money and trying not to rock the boat, but it was a part of the decision that I made, to leave. But it's also, I think, kind of evident in the way that he decided to do this kind of 30-minute monologue criticizing Francesca, who never, that there were opportunities for them to hire her full time, to give her benefits, to value her labor. And instead of doing so, they just kept her on as a contractor. She took a check from them, sure. But then to make a whole show out of banning her from the network and doing this video about somebody who has very little power. You are the employer. She is the employee. She's the contractor. And to throw her under the bus like that, especially when her show has like a fraction of their subscriber count, I really do think it speaks to the workplace environment that's becoming more and more evident for people here.
And
I will say, like, this is
we have now documented multiple instances of TYT and Cenk Uygur violating legally binding contracts. Yesterday, we learned from Francesca that Cenk gave her a contract for employment. Okay. She was going to then move to Los Angeles for this job. And then 2 weeks later, he contacts her again and is like, hey, I know you signed that legally binding document. Just rocky, murky waters. We're not going to be able to honor that for you. Totally illegal. Totally against the law. Francesca said she had multiple people advise her to sue. Okay. Which she would have been able to do well within her rights. But she's such a comrade. She was so concerned about the broader progressive mission. She was like, how is it going to look if I have to sue this progressive news organization right before Bernie Sanders' primary, right in the midst of all of that? It's going to make it so easy for right-wing news to pick it up and slam these guys and make it look like, oh, every progressive news organization is full of scammers. So she chose not to, and she just took the fucking L, which more power to her. That's an incredibly selfless thing to do for the progressive movement. I wouldn't have fucking done it, dude. I would have wrestled Jake's fucking ass to the ground and gotten my fucking money. Okay? Dead ass. I'm just being real with you. But then you have Ben Dixon, who also had his contract violated. They were paying him for clips that were going on one social media platform and then not paying him for the money that it was generating on other social media platforms. Clear violation of his contract. We can, I'm sure, find others. That's all in addition to the
Remember
union
Hassan?
busting.
He was taking his money that he got from reaching out to advertisers, right?
Yes. So that's a great point. So basically, Hassan came out on another podcast and said that he was the first business development rep for the Young Turks, which for people who don't work in biz dev, that's like sales department, right? That's one of the places where they'll usually have you start your career if you're going to be involved in business administration of any kind, right? And so Hassan, he's a smooth talking guy. He's got a great voice. He's got charisma. He's got a great personality. I guarantee you he's an awesome salesman because that's what it takes to be a good salesman. People don't buy the product. They buy you. That's some capitalism 101 for you. I went to business school. Okay. You know, and
you mean Wall Street?
Yeah, Wall Street, with my hand tattoos and my fucking knuckle tats and all that shit. Yeah, they were itching to hire me. I was beating them away with sticks, but I had principles, you know. Anyway, I'm like losing my train of thought here. But the reality is that he was stealing his commissions for the sales that he was making
for his
on
own fucking family member.
Yeah, and
giving it to other employees, or just literally taking advantage of his labor. It's crazy. Yeah.
This is going to be the last segment that we do about this kind of drama. I suspect it won't be the last segment we do about their takes.
Right.
Because literally every other segment we've ever done about them has been about a take.
Right.
That we think is not good to have. But we should also say, when is this happening? The 31st?
Oh, yes.
That's Sam giving his official
the polymarket debt is expiring. So you've gotten to the 31st.
All the time we get these stupid ass brainless takes. It's like, why are you guys criticizing Cenk in the face of fascism? I'm like, this bro is rolling out the red carpet for fascism. That's why we're criticizing him. Okay. If, we see another channel taking down the Daily Wire and talking about how they're imploding right now and they're hiring bankruptcy attorneys. And, here's the X, Y, and Z's there. I'd be like, good. Thank you for covering that. I want the Daily Wire to fail because they're ushering in fascism. Right? This is just one that's a little bit closer to home. And even Sam Seder, a man of virtue and principle who wants to cover legitimate policies, like, oh, yeah, somebody has to be out there debunking these ridiculous takes. Somebody has to be out there being like, no, this is not acceptable. This is a instinct that is to protect yourself at the expense of the collective. And even that won't protect you. You know what I mean? You have to have somebody out there to debunk problematic takes on the internet. And Cenk is no longer somebody that can be considered on our side. The Young Turks Network is no longer somebody that's going to even be considered on our side for the laundry list of reasons that you've heard so far in just 11 minutes and 47 seconds of this video.
Although now it's down to 1% chance.
It's down to 1%. We really blew it because this could have been like, I could have had so much opportunity if I could have somehow. And I know exactly who I would have borrowed the money from.
Crypto?
Yeah, scroll to the question part. Although we can't, it's not legal in the United States.
Well, I know people who live, in Europe.
Wait, Americans can't even bet on this?
No, it's not legal in the United States. And TYT sold the naming rights of their studio, which they crowdfunded from their audience back in the day. They turned around and sold it to Polymarket. So did Kamala buy ads on the Majority Report? It's now down to a 1% chance. That's unfortunate.
Now, here's the irony of this.
Yeah.
and I'm going to put this in the chat, guys. Here's the irony of this. You know how that dynamic of like every right wing accusation is a confession.
Mm-hmm.
The sometimes, and this is the thing, is that like, you know, and I think everyone is subject to sort of like ambition taking over and chipping away at any type of principles that you have. It is a danger. It is very danger. It is a huge danger in every business, I would imagine. Certainly in, you know, YouTube, where every, you know of every click that you're going to get at any minute and this and that. And certainly like in this, where like we have an email list. We put ads on our email list. We do that. But we, from day one, we have always vowed we're never going to sell or rent out our email list to anybody else.
We covered this already, by the way. You heard it here
find
first.
it annoying and whatnot, but I don't think there's something wrong with the practice of doing that. I do think that there is something wrong with the practice of doing that and then falsely acclaiming that other people are doing it.
Right.
And as if it's problematic.
Yeah.
I do
it's
think
interesting because I knew that this was the
To sell your email list?
Yeah. Okay, guys, here's what they did.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
What they did was they built up this massive email list of people who were fighting for progressive change, right? One of the things that Gavin and I always talk about that's so critical in these times, if you're hosting a show and you want people to watch it, you have to go on a mission with them, right? And when your mission is over, you have to set a new freaking mission. You know what I mean? Right now, TYT, they have no mission, and those people are now pissed off. But do you know what mission they did not ask to go on, Gavin? I want to be a NIMBY liberal. I want to be a blue dog Democrat, right? And that is exactly who TYT auctioned off their fucking email list to the highest bidder, which is like the shit libbiest, you know, Joe Biden backing Kamala Harris pack ever. And they didn't tell that to their audience. So people in their audience kept emailing us and they were like, dude, it's kind of weird, but we keep getting super PAC emails from the Democrats. And I've never signed up for anything Democrat. I've signed up for Bernie. I've signed up for insurgent progressives, but never, you know, Kamala Harris. Why am I getting these Kamala Harris emails and texts all the time? It's because TYT sold your shit to a data collector, basically.
Yup. And it's just so crazy that Cenk would then turn around and accuse them of taking DNC money to read Kamala Harris ads on stream or whatever, when in reality that's not the case. And they were actually profiting from similar practices. So, you know, we're about to hear about all of that pretty crazy shit.
The case, but I wanted to check again that I was recalling it correctly. So I just put into Twitter, I think it was TYT Biden email list. So you can go to 2020. This is probably around the time that I received a call from someone high up in the network asking me not to speak publicly about this.
Oh, wait, was it about this or about the union busting?
Oh, that happened twice. So it was about this, that TYT was selling its email list seemingly covertly to the Biden campaign in 2020. So this guy,
the exact thing that they accused us of doing.
Yeah.
That's the point that I find.
Isn't that interesting?
Listen, I don't like, again, I'm not judging that practice. We don't do it because I personally find it annoying to like sign up for one thing and have it be sold to somewhere else. And so we don't do that. We'll put an ad from Sunset Lake in like the AM Quickie, but that's a newsletter that we sign up and we have advertisement. But I would never sell the email list to somebody else because then it's out of your control and God knows where it ends up.
Let alone to a political campaign, because we're supposed to be a show that's independent of the politicians that we're trying to be critiqued.
I would run if Bernie's campaign came to us and said, "Will you?"
Also, in addition to selling their email list, TYT constantly, continually hits up the people that are on that email list for money. They're constantly begging people for money. My friend Alex used to be a TYT member 2 years ago. They still send him emails to this day begging him to come back. We showed one of them on stream. It was like, hey, buddy, 2 years ago, you threw us some cash. We really need some more. So we're going to come around to hit you up again and shake you down because, you know, we really need this money. And let's guilt you with like 5 paragraphs of sob story about how every media company is failing. And if you don't want us to fail too, then you better, you know, pony up, bitch. So it's pathetically desperate. And again, just a misunderstanding of the original product and, you know, what made it appealing in the first place. TYT never should have been this huge organization with 75 employees and all these different shows and outlets and yada, yada, yada. They really overfunded this from the very beginning. Can you imagine, Zach, doing what we do and trying to make it sustainable with as much overhead as a company like that has?
No, and that's what I just don't understand. And to be honest, guys, I've been reading about how Amazon and Netflix and all these, Hulu they're going to start buying up podcasts. And I'm like, good. Get the fuck out of here and let the YouTubers make YouTube content again, because I don't want to see, we have to read this McDonald's ad because that's the only way that we can, pay our 800 employees. It's like, bro, I don't want you to have 800 employees. I want you to have 4 employees that help you edit and help you do fact checking and help you.
Like the Majority Report.
Exactly, bro. It's an insular team. They take care of everyone, right? Emma was able to get, I think SAG accreditation or something like that as a result of working there. They discussed unionizing, but because their team was so small, it didn't really make sense for them. They all engage and interact with Sam every single day. Emma talked to us about how Sam's never denied her a request for a day off in the entire time that she's worked at the Majority Report. Like, he actually walks his walk behind the scenes. And that is the exact opposite thing we've heard from every single contributor. The only person that has ever come out here and said nice things about Cenk Uygur is the guy who runs cover for him professionally, Jordan Yule, who I like, and I thought we had a good conversation with, but I'm like, dog, your job right now is to be the only real progressive to run cover for Cenk and be like, see, Cenk's actually a good guy. And it's like, no, he's not, bro. I've talked to dozens of workers for this guy who want to talk about how he's lied, cheated, and stolen from them. So while you run cover for that guy, I'm not exactly interested in hearing your other progressive bona fides.
Yeah, 100%. Let's take in a little bit more of this. Obviously, it's a long video. You guys can, watch it on your own time. But Zach, does that sound good? Maybe, take in a couple more minutes of this and segue into our Q&A.
Absolutely.
Will you do a whole email about how Bernie's great? I would say yes.
Probably, yeah.
But I'm not going to give you my email list.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you my email list.
Right.
I mean, they disclose it here, but it's interesting, their disclosure. Go to the next page. This is the Biden.
This is the screenshot from 5 years ago now.
Yeah, 2020. But here's it down at the bottom here. You can see, like, the above advertisement for Biden for president has been sent to you via the Young Turks email list. At TYT, the bulk of our funding comes from you and other TYT fans. Now, that's also a lie. The bulk of their funding came from Katzenberg, certainly by 2020.
Didn't go to
And there we go. There you have it, everyone. They talk about memberships. They talk about, we need you to support us. We need you to donate money. But they haven't actually been spending your money, right? They have been using that as a way of creating the veneer of a worker, small, grassroots donation, sustained organization, when in reality, that was all marketing to them, right? It's always just been marketing to them. They've never, ever walked the walk. Okay. So what they did was they took this $20 million and probably other funding rounds too, guys. That's just the most famous one, right? That doesn't include the Sandberg money. That doesn't include the money that Sam Seder references from before Katzenberg, right? So they're taking in millions and millions of dollars in funding from private equity, right? That means potentially when they started to make less money, it was your dollars and your contributions to the show and the merch that you guys bought that was paying back those venture capitalist vultures, okay, that were destroying the Young Turks, okay? So all of this has been a lie. It's been a ruse. When you donate money to the Vanguard, when you send Gavin and I a couple of bucks in Patreon, I can tell you exactly how we use it, okay? First, we pay both of our rents. We make sure that we have money for groceries. I pay my car note. Gavin pays for whatever he has to pay for, all of that kind of stuff. And then we have like this surplus and we put it into a fucking bank account and we use that to go out and try and be like, okay, well, we needed to upgrade our microphone. So we spent that money on that. We have to pay Uncle Sam at the end of the year. So we put away a chunk of money for that. We needed a computer that wasn't going to crash when we were editing as much as we're editing. We use some of the money for that. Now we have a 2-week long project that we're about to embark on as a way of raising awareness for an unsung issue in America. We put away money for that. When we went to Branson, Missouri, we had money to be put away for that. We're living on like the excesses of that because we want to continue to put our best foot forward and we want to continue to make really good, thoughtful content for you guys. And we want to reinvest everything that you send to us. TYT was basically scamming you guys. They were basically just getting you to send them money that they were going to set on fire or put in some rich guy's pocket. It's really, really deeply disturbing.
employee raises or bonuses or anything like that. I wonder where it went.
And that's what allows us to maintain our independence as an alternative media outlet. On occasion, we forge partnerships with select advertisers as a source of additional. We do not share your information with advertisers, and the views expressed in this email do not constitute any endorsement or recommendation by the Young Turks. I mean, like, it's hard to trust it when they're like sort of being a little cagey about the $20 million investment they had in there. Now, I don't begrudge them that either. I don't have those kind of ambitions to become, like the world's largest, that's not
right.
Just
we just want to do our show the best
a matter of taste.
Yeah.
But the problem is with taking money is that sometimes if things go sideways, that money becomes a source of pressure and you start to do things that is really more about that. This is when the flights to El Salvador took place, Cenk had a tweet that was like, I think we should be removing these things, but you need to listen to a court.
The criminals,
but we need to be listening to a court. We are not in an era where parsing things this thinly is in any way effective. When you do that, you are obscuring what is the fundamental issue here. That flight would not have been right, even if they were unable to get to a court to enjoin them from flying there.
Either way, I think we probably heard enough. I think Sam's analysis is 100% on point, and that analysis is basically that Cenk is a grifter, and that's what we've been saying for a while.
Yep. You know what? Court adjourned. We have officially ruled here at the Vanguard that the Young Turks are cooked.
Yeah, dude, it's real tough to see a serious path forward for the network. They'd have to go full Doge, bring out the chainsaw, massively reduce the staff, massively reduce their operations for it to really be a successful company by any metric, in my opinion, going forward. And for them to do that would kind of be admitting defeat, right? It would basically be admitting defeat. So, I think it's pretty interesting to see we're at this point. But yeah, that video from the Majority Report, you guys can watch the rest of it. It continues to get even more damning. But at least it's nice to see some consequences, Zach. I guess, that's the one cool thing about this. As frustrating as it is to study the trajectory of the Young Turks and talk about it, at least there's kind of some justice served. Cenk likes to talk about justice. Justice is coming. Justice Democrats. It's one of his favorite words. Well, we got some justice served up here because the Young Turks has lost this war. The Young Turks has been fucking vanquished. And if they ever return, it will never be in a form as strong or impressive or formidable as it once was. Which again, I guess at least there's a bit of a fable for you, a bit of an Aesop fable.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The